Hey guys, coming to you from the road today. I'm making the trip from Austin, Texas to Houston, and we're going to be visiting a builder friend of mine who got absolutely destroyed, his personal house during Hurricane Harvey. I don't know if you remember Hurricane Harvey, September, about 6 months ago. In Austin, I got 10 inches of rain. In some parts of Houston down here, 50 inches of rain that weekend. Crazy. So Dave, builder friend of mine, absolutely got flooded out, has a crazy story, and he's rebuilding his house on actually in the same location. So hopefully we can find Dave's job site, and let's pick the video up from there. I'm gonna introduce you to Dave and show you exactly how he's rebuilding after that massive flood that we had. To Dave's neighborhood. We're in South Houston. We're on the way to the coast here, kind of south and east. And from what I understand, this whole neighborhood was under a couple feet of water. Look at this. This house, you can tell there's sheetrock damage, glass, all kinds of stuff in the yard here. That's all I'm sure from when they gutted the house out. This one, same thing. There's just sheetrock, debris, and clearly these houses got gutted out. All right, we're here. Oh my gosh, there it is right there. Dang, I could tell which house it is because this is mainly a single-story neighborhood. And I'm probably revealing the secret a little early, but Dave has lived in this house in this neighborhood for a long time, I understand. The floodwaters came up a couple of feet, like 4 feet into his house, single-story house. And so what you're gonna see is Dave came up with a really unique situation or solution to the problem, where he reused his existing slab-on-grade foundation. You know, we're down here in Texas, a lot of slab-on-grades. Slab-on-grade's a great foundation, even if you have water issues, because you're on a slab, you're not worried about the slab and water. But what he did was he built a 2-story house where the whole first floor is basically a crawl space or a garage space, and then you're gonna see that he built up higher than that. So let's go see if we can find Dave. He's meeting us here. I bet that's his pickup truck over there. Here we are, here's Dave's house over here. So that whole first floor we're about to see is gonna be crawl space, garage, in effect, Texas basement. And then what you're seeing there is stairs up to the first floor, which is going to be his main house level now. So let's see if we can go find Dave. Look at this. Dave! So this is his slab right here, which was the first floor. Looks like this is his new garage, but you can tell this was the first floor of his house before. And then he's solid sheet. It looks like this is pressure treated plywood. He's got studs here, and then now his first floor is up here, 8 feet above us. I like seeing this. He's got I-joists. Looks like he's got some closed cell foam up there to separate both thermally and to air seal. Plus that closed cell is gonna give him some extra strength as well. All right, let's check this out. So here, this is his original slab. Look, you can see if you look at the floor, he's even got some of his original, I don't know if this was tile or some glue down hardwoods maybe. And I'm guessing where the slab recess is, I bet this was where his original front door to the house was. Oh, I wonder if it's emotional for him and his wife to come back through here and see these spaces and remember the memories that they made on this first floor. But now everything's a floor above. It's gotta be a feeling of relief for him too, I have to think. Looks like he was able to tap into a lot of his existing plumbing. It's pretty interesting. He's got his test ball in right here. This got pumped up with air. There's a ball in there that's holding it, and my guess is this is all filled with water. I know he's getting real close to the drywall stage, so his plumbing inspection's probably just happened. He may be filled with water to test his pipes to make sure everything's working. I hear people upstairs. Let's go outside and let's actually walk up the stairs. Go see if we can find Dave. 8 feet above where he used to live on the first floor down there. And this is all brand new construction. So everything you're seeing here is brand new. He took the house all the way down and then framed this all the way back up. Looks really well built, looks solid. Vantech decking here. I know we had I-joists down below. Looks like he's already in the insulation stage. This is probably open cell foam here because it's above ground and enclosed down below. Dave!
Matthew!
Man, how are you, brother?
Welcome.
So good to see you, Dave. Tell me about the house, man. You're rocking on this thing.
Well, have you been downstairs?
Yeah, we went downstairs quickly.
If you were downstairs,
8 feet above where your first floor was.
We're probably closer to 10 feet once you take in it. So we've got 8-foot studs. Down below is 2x6 treated 8-foot studs.
Okay.
With treated plywood.
Treated ply.
With Harvey on the outside.
Nice. So totally water resistant. Basically.
Totally water resistant. Then we came up and we've got 16-inch eye joists.
Okay. With
a closed cell foam underneath.
Yep.
That underneath our feet right now.
Yeah.
So it
that's a solid floor.
So that prevents our vapor from coming up underneath.
Exactly.
There's lots of houses that were built after Hurricane Ike that have figured out what happens when vapor comes through fiberglass insulation.
Yeah. So and there's condensation issues and all kinds of mold.
Oh, they can put their foot right through their subfloor. I don't care how good that subfloor was. It's yeah, you don't want to be on the coast nowadays.
No.
So then we came up here. So we're about 8, 9, approaching 10 feet above the old slab. The slab's the only thing we kept. We had just under 5 feet of water down there. Out there in the street where you're parked, your truck would be under about 3 or 4 feet of water the night of the flood.
Gosh.
So
5 feet up your walls in your house.
Yeah. And so we tore up all the way up to the ceilings, and the water was in the house for about almost 4 or 5 days by the time we get to it. So all the sheetrock was mush. So we tore out the ceilings, and there was nothing left. We had some really smelly, rotty studs. We had some bricks, and we had some shingles. But we looked at it and said, hey, let's get rid of it.
So you're the first to do this, though. What are you calling this?
My Texas basement design.
Texas basement.
I haven't seen that on YouTube, and I said, man, what could Matt do that's different? Now you're from the hill country, and you guys kind of have basements, but you have to chisel down into rock.
Yeah, we do.
So along the Gulf Coast, we even have clients that want basements. They move from up north, and say, where do I put everything? I said, well, in Texas, that's what the garage is for. That's not for a car.
It's for your stuff.
The kids' stuff. So if you have kids, you know what I mean.
I have a 1-story house and I have a garage. I'm familiar.
Yeah. So we went through all sorts of discussions, talked to lots of people, lots of engineers, and so we went through, well, if we tore everything out, including the slab, and went through piling, drive some piles down into the ground, do this, do that. There are some homes in Houston, what we call Meyerland, they're raising the slabs 8 to 10 feet.
So they're raising the
slabs, and I'll share pictures with you sometime.
An existing slab, they're raising 8 feet.
And we thought of that, and I got a price on that, and the city said, according to floodplain rules, I only had to come up 2.5 feet. And I said, well, that's great, but I had 5 feet of water. That seems counterintuitive to my brain. And so we said, we want to go up 8 feet. And the building official, floodplain manager said, oh, that's great. We're all behind you. So we went through all the scenarios, and we said, it just doesn't make sense. We got a price to raise the slab 8 feet, and it was just under $200,000. And that's just to get started. Wow. Then you rebuild the inside of the house and go, so you're talking $400,000 rebuild minimum. And
did your slab move much? Did it go out of level, or did it?
Ironically, about 10 years ago, I had some peers put in along some of this, and I had the same company that called them up and said, hey, I'm curious. I've had an engineer look at it. He said the slab looks good, but I want to know. He said, do you still have the file? Because all my files were gone. So they went with the flood, so I couldn't look up the thing. So they came out with the old drawings and the readings that they took the day they left after leveling
with a water level, basically.
With a water level.
Yeah.
They came in, and I followed him around, and he scratched his head. He looked at his readings, and he said, man, he said, in 10 years, he said, you've torn off the flooring, so give or take 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch, your slab hasn't moved in 10 years.
Oh my gosh.
And I said, well, that's what I want to hear.
That's good.
That's a
good solid base to start with.
Now it's looking like a major wind and storm surge threat, and then a ton of flooding on top of that. So this is really a triple threat storm as it heads in.
It was a crazy night, August 27th, 2017. I think everyone in the Gulf Coast will remember that night.
Yeah, that's for
sure. Friendswood had just over 60 inches of rain during that event.
60 inches of rain.
It's most people don't have that in 2 years. So that night we had picked up our foreign exchange student. Her name's JoJo. She came from Germany, and we've been planning for months to have her join us. So we picked her up from the big airport. We brought her back here. She was in the house for 5 hours till we evacuated. But she was tired. She went to bed. I'd been watching the news. We knew it was going to be kind of bad. So I stayed up and watched the news. And so when we got back, I said, well, it's really raining. Just in case, I moved all our cars uphill, about 150 yards to get them out of harm's way. I went, plopped down in front of the TV to watch more of the radar and news. And I stayed up. The girls went to bed. I stayed up. And about 12:30 at night, I actually took my flashlight. It had been raining hard for hours. I took my flashlight out to the creek in the backyard. And I looked over and I could see the water from the creek about 20 yards beyond the fence. I thought, oh, okay, that's not bad. We've seen it there before. But I decided every 30 minutes I would go and check the creek.
Man, that was smart.
I went out 30 minutes later and it was up to the fence.
Oh.
I mean, it was just that quick in 30 minutes. So from 12:30 at night when I first checked, it was just beyond the fence. At 2:30 in the morning, 2 hours later, it was at our slab.
Oh my God.
At 12:30, I'd woke up the girls, said, hey, time to throw stuff upstairs. They went along with that. We did what we could, but it was just so fast. I knew if we didn't get out then, we couldn't get out because we'd flooded before during Allison in 2001, and our street floods first. So when we left, and it was just at our threshold, it was already 4 feet deep in the street, and we had to wade through that in the pouring rain with the family
4
dog.
feet.
And
ultimately the house settled at a water line of 5 feet inside the house, right?
So yeah, it was already 4 feet, so about 9 to 10 feet of water was in the street. So we went to a friend's house, and we weren't able to come back to the house for about 4 or 5 days. We did come back by boat one time, and that was an interesting adventure.
Can't imagine the emotion.
Yeah.
And you still had water in the house at that point, right?
There was still
so
water.
It wasn't even receded yet.
And we could see the house, and my first time in, there was still about 3 or 4 feet left in the house. And we got in, we saved the family hamster. That was our goal that day, to save the hamster that was upstairs. So
it's good.
Made the kids
good
happy.
Goal, no doubt.
So we saved the hamster. But during the flood, we threw everything, big stuff. We thought, hey, there'd be a couple feet of water. We had brought in plywood from the garage, made things about 3 or 4 feet off the floor, but eventually everything disappeared in the flood. On my nightstand next to my bed that night was my Aggie ring and my wedding band, and small things you don't think of. And so after the flood, I kind of looked around the house, and my wife hadn't come back. We wouldn't allow her back at the house. And I looked around, I said, man, because the house, nothing was where you left it. It was like just gone. And so I lost both those rings. So fast forward, we made the decision to knock down the house. And neighborhood was quiet. I was here one Saturday working on this little tiny house out here in the driveway. And I took a break for lunch, and I walked down along the mud. We had a lot of mud lately. And I looked down. I thought I saw a glimmer of something shiny, like pipe or metal or something. And so I reached down and just hit it with my finger and up flipped this circular little thing, but I knew it wasn't my wedding band, but I said, oh, so there were some PEX that I had put during the remodel inside the house, and I recognized it as a type of PEX connection. And I said, the wife has been really bummed since I lost my wedding band, and she said, we will not buy any jewelry until we build the house and see if there's any money left. And so I went home, and I had this on, and I went up to my wife, and I said, look, honey, look what I found.
It looks like a true wedding ring from a distance.
I said, we are now married once again. And it had been a few months since the flood. And so she was kind of thinking I was a little whacked out, but then she said, I like that. It's not bad.
It's not bad. God has been good to you, man. This has been I've talked to you at length about this. This has been a really hard road for you and your wife, especially being so long in here, but what an amazing thing to come and see how far you've gotten and how this will again be home for you guys.
And I appreciate you being here.
What can you tell people who are interested, builders, remodelers, homeowners, in rebuilding in this way that you've done?
I said, I'm a big believer now that going up is the way to go.
Yeah, for sure.
I know some of my neighbors are just replacing sheetrock, and the comment that got me was I went through the whole scenario of rebuilding, and then a friend of mine said, well, it's going to flood again and you're going to do this again. And I said, well, I'm too old to do this again.
I want to do that again.
So he said, why don't you do it right, knock it down, and start over? And I called him crazy that day.
Yep.
But then it took probably 2 months after that initial thought went in my brain before we decided to do it.
And really, in terms of expense, we're talking about framing on the first floor, and that's beefy framing down there. I mean, that's legit framing. That's not just standard house walls. You've got pressure treated studs. Is that 1/2 inch or 3/4 plywood on there?
It's 1/2 inch plywood.
1/2 inch pressure treated plywood. Is that standard 16 inch spacing?
16 inch spacing. Yeah.
So I mean, you've got some beefy framing. You also got some big hold downs.
We've got hold downs and shear walls on every wall.
And shear walls on every.
And then once we're done, we'll coat it again with another layer of plywood now that we've been inspected. So there will be a whole lot more shear potential underneath.
But in effect, you basically just build a crawl space or a basement, really,
That's
right? I mean, because now, let's say you want to remodel this kitchen someday, all you got to do is go downstairs, get on a stepladder, unplug that plumbing, and plug it back into the right spot.
Yeah.
You know, if you sold this house or you decide to remodel in 10 years, it'd be super easy to do that.
Yeah.
And if the flood comes back at 6 feet instead of 5, God forbid, you're going to be fine in this house.
Well,
and this house will survive.
We'll hose out our Texas basement and we'll call it a day. And
You put some fans and a dehum in there for a week and you're done.
yeah.
That's it. Dave, I did a video a couple weeks ago, top 10 dumb things to do in the South. And this is the opposite of that. There is a lot of smart going on in this attic. Give me a tour here.
I told you, I said, build a house by the Matt Reisinger YouTube book of good stuff. I read the dumb article and I said, no, we don't want to do that. But
No.
early on, we decided if we were to rebuild, spray foam's the only way to go.
Yep.
I had been in my old house, the one that used to stand here, and I can tell you, the cabinet of the AC unit sweated, the ducts would sweat.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just, it
terrible.
was a moisture nightmare. And this truly is the way to go.
So now you got what, 10 inches of open cell on the, or maybe 9 inches on the roof here?
9 inches. We've got 2x6 rafters buried in there somewhere.
Yep. Looks great.
And then we came in with actually just a 4-ton heat pump. So for a 3,200 square foot house,
Gotcha.
we're looking nice there.
So you got a 4-ton here, and then this silver box looks interesting. What is this bad boy, Dave?
Ooh, that's you don't see those very often.
No, that's
But,
unusual.
My friends from Brown introduced me to ERVs, Energy Recovery Ventilator.
Yep.
Rather than just a traditional dampered fresh air or something, this will be a balance system.
So if you're not familiar with that, let me inject one quick
Sure.
second with the geek speak. So ERV, Energy Recovery Ventilator. If you're in the north, you'd have an HRV, you're recovering heat. But down here in the south, where it's hot and humid, in Houston it's hot and humid 10 of the 12 months a year. I mean, I could use AC today probably. We want to bring in fresh air to our houses, but we also don't want all that humidity coming in. So Dave's ERV here is going to reject some of the humidity by taking air out of the house, and there's a little cone in the center there that's going to move the moisture from the incoming stream to the outgoing stream and bring in less humid air. This is not a dehumidifier, but it's a fresh air machine that has less of a penalty than a standard one.
And it
Sorry, keep going.
no, the idea of having it balanced for whatever comes in, equal amount goes out. And if you follow these ducts around, eventually, when we tie in, we got another bad boy down here that you like.
Oh, what's this? Yes.
The
Look at that one.
dehumidifier. That
The Ultra Air 98H, that's a good unit.
with any tight house, humidity is going to be your #1 issue.
Yep.
So
Look at this. You got a sweet 2-inch filter you can put in there.
Yep.
And so this is your return. This is bringing air from the house. And you're going to plug off this because you don't need the fresh air input.
right,
Because you've got fresh air from your ERV. And then you've got a MERV 11 or a MERV 13 filter that will go in there. And then this will dehumidify 98 pints per 24 hours. So we can take a ton of moisture out of the air on those humid days and then dump it on this side. This is going to get connected into the return side of your furnace,
Right.
or supply side of your furnace.
and it's going to come in there. And we're using it temporarily now to dry out the house, so we're not tying it in and running it through all the supply ducts. Just we don't want construction dust floating around through the ducts.
I love it.
So we'll go there. And then we've got one more cool machine over there.
Oh, what do you got over here, too?
You
You got a Rinnai tankless water heater.
I had a lovely tanked water heater for many, many years, but when we went with this, we said, being spray foam, I was going to have to go with a high efficiency unit of some sort.
So this is PVC
It's PVC.
because this is like 98% efficient. So now it's taking most of the heat out of the gas, and you don't have that metal flue with hot gases. I understand the gases coming out of this are under 200 degrees.
Yes, it's
So you
not
can
quite
fit-
room temperature, but
Yeah.
but it also has 2 concentric rings in there. The outer one,
Yep.
there's air coming in. to burn the gases, and then the spent air going up the middle.
And it's sealed combustion because we're in a sealed attic, and he's got a heat pump up here, so there's no gas burning that we need to bring in air for. So one other thing I want to point out, looks like you've got a hip roof maybe up here?
Yes.
So hip roof, and his air conditioning, or pardon me, his envelope, his air conditioning envelope, is all the way up at the top of the roof line. So this spray foam that he's using here is coming all the way up. There's no vents, there's no ridge vent, there's no soffit vents. Everything you see here is within his air conditioned envelope. This is an absolute textbook attic. Dave, you killed it up here.
Thanks, man.
Let's go down to your crawl space, or your basement, or your
man cave?
Your man cave, and let's go take a look down there.
Tortillas? Hey, Bob, want some tortillas? There. I'm gonna throw here. Now be quiet.
Hey Dave, tell me about your outside. This looks like a full cement board exterior. What do we got here?
Our friends from James Hardy supplied all the outside, various pieces of material, but it's, again, we got the plywood behind it as a backer, but we've got Hardy lap siding on the base, our basement side.
Yeah.
Then we put a 5/4 by 12-inch band as just a decorative piece to go between the first and second.
And this is a piece of it right here. This is basically cement. It's like a sidewalk on the house.
It is heavy.
So just like your slab made it through the flood and is fine, if the flood waters ever come back, they'll recede and you're good to go out here.
We'll spray it off with
a power washer and you're done.
And then we've got
That's
board
a
and
great
batten
choice.
above it, and it'll have that nice country look to it when we're all done.
Love it.
This is the original slab, and ironically, if you look on the slab where it says sink, after Tropical Storm Allison and we rebuilt, this is my markings from 2001 when I rebuilt. So this was the sink and the window was right here. And so you're in the kitchen, this is the dining room over here.
And then what am I seeing here, Dave? What's that block out for? Is that a cat door?
Yeah, many cat doors. There's actually 19 of those framed in around the house. They're going to cut out. When we get the house painted on the outside, we'll come back and we will install our smart vent flood vents.
Okay.
And they're a buoyant type of vent that they're stainless steel, and if floods ever come, they let the water in a nice manner and then they let it out in the same way.
That's beautiful.
But,
so they're closed most of the time. The water comes, they raise up, let it in or out, and then your whole basement would dry even if you weren't here necessarily and all the doors were closed.
Right.
Man, that's awesome.
So,
Dave, thank you so much for the tour, brother. Hey, as we close out the video, is there any way that someone watching this video wants to help either you or Houstonians that have had flood issues? Anything you can recommend for people?
Well, I wrote a deal on my blog at daveyelovich.com.
Okay, we'll link to that in the description.
I've been blessed. I'm in the industry. I can do some things, but even this project isn't all covered by insurance.
Yeah, tell me about that. How much of this was covered?
The wife and I decided, we're going to take a hickey building it right. So we figured about a third to maybe 40% is covered by insurance, and then we're having to take out a new loan, a new mortgage to rebuild the rest of the house.
Painful.
So that does help, but there are many neighbors up and down. You can drive around literally for miles. You came up the street.
I saw it.
You go street by street by street along this creek, and there are people that they don't have insurance, they don't have the resources. There's some people who haven't even pulled the sheetrock out of their houses yet.
Oh my gosh, I can't imagine.
So I tell people, I said, if you've got time at spring break, give them a hand. If you can help them out with gifts of some sort, any type of building material, or just even some good advice. Some people, when I've been here on building, neighbors stop by just asking, who do you know that can do this or do that or do this? So the needs are there. I said all the volunteers have evaporated.
Yeah, dried up now for sure.
But the needs are there. It's just, there's literally, and just in our town, thousands of homes that need to get back to normal. And many of them are at square one. Me, I'm blessed. I'm sheetrocking next week.
Wow.
So we're halfway there, if you will. So it's, but just reach out, ask people, just come by, do you need help? And one way or another, they go from there. But I appreciate you guys coming all the way from Austin and joining us on Go Texan Day.
Man, Dave, may the Lord bless you, brother. This project is so encouraging to see, and I hope you've learned something from what Dave did on his. My hope is that we'll get wide distribution of this video. Send this to your friends. whether they're in a flood zone or not, because I think what we're talking about here is really interesting science, both from a building science perspective and from a flood perspective. And otherwise, follow us on Twitter, Instagram. Look in the description below for links to Dave's blog, or we'll see you next time on The Build Show.